If you're new to foam clay, you have probably wondered about how to dry your foam clay creations. At the very least, you've wondered how long it takes for them to dry, and maybe you ran into a few issues like cracks or some sloping, flat spots. So let me share with you what I do. For example, this design is a flat design, and I let it dry 24 hours on its back on my work surface. Then I take my blade and I flip it over. You will notice that only the top is drying and the back is still completely wet. That's why it is important that you flip it over after 24 hours and then let it dry for a couple more days. Over the next week or so, it'll harden completely. You may need to support certain parts of your design. In this particular one, the rat created a big gap between the head and the work surface, so that overnight the weight of the head could have potentially drooped down, and then it would have dried in that position of sticking forward, which I definitely didn't want that. So I found something that fit exactly into that gap. Another example of a figure that needs support. You see how the bunny is drooping backwards? Even while I was creating it still, it was already starting to droop backwards. So all I did, I put a Mod Podge container behind it to support its back. Now, because it is a fresh figure, it will create a flat spot, but it is so minor and it's in the back that I don't mind. You can avoid this from happening by creating in stages. You can create the body and the head separately and then combine them once they are dried. That is kind of what I did for the gingerbread pen. I really wanted to avoid a flat spot on the candy cane. In order to do that, I wrapped the pen in the candy cane pattern, and then I used a block of foam to stick my pen in there, and I let it dry for a day or maybe two. And once it was dry, then I continued putting the gingerbread girl on, and that completely avoided a flat spot. Another thing you can do is use a toothpick and some styrofoam. A problem with flat designs like cookies, when you dry them the way I showed you with a witch, they tend to dry curved or bent. And a way to avoid it is either I put it on a mesh tray like that way it can dry from sides equally, or I make a temporary ornament. So I use a pin and some fishing line, and I will stick my creation on there and hang it to dry. The nice thing about this, you can reuse these little pins all the time. So I have like 3 on hand at all times, and I just pull them out once it's dry and use them for next time. If you make anything bigger than 2 inch, I highly suggest that you build some sort of structure for your figure, because the foam clay tends to be heavy when it's wet, and the bigger you build, the more prone it is to losing its shape. It also cuts down on drying time if you use something like styrofoam, and it saves you from using a lot of clay. When you build a structure with aluminum foil, the nice thing about it is you can shape it in the shape you need it. A bad thing is it has it's a little painful, and it can have like little sharp corners, so cover it up first with one layer of foam clay and then cover it again. You can use styrofoam, it comes in different shapes. You could even cut it to the shape that you need it. And the nice thing about styrofoam is it's nice and smooth. I don't use glue on it, I just drape it over, and as long as you completely cover the entire thing, it will not fall off. If you just cover the front, I would suggest to use some sort of glue to attach the foam clay to the styrofoam. So you're probably still confused about drying time. I wanted to talk about it one more time. There is no perfect formula for how long you need to let it dry. It really depends on not only the size of your creation, but also how dry your clay was when you started out making your figure, and the humidity in your home. You need to experiment a little bit and just observe your clay figure. Once they lost their sponginess, they are fully dried. So that's a good test. I hope you found this very helpful for your foam clay journey. Thank you so much for watching.